Hi, I'm Simone Smith, and I'm a senior at Virginia Tech, majoring in public relations, the minor in event experience management. Um, Getting into my reflection for Module 1 on Elizabeth Samet's, kind of breakdown of crisis leadership, I think it really kind of tied together kind of how when we oftentimes think of leadership, we think of someone who can, rise to the occasion in terms of giving direction, guidance, or solutions, and kind of give, peace and hope to people. And when something, like a problem has kind of, come forward or is presented. And so she kind of says how before a leader can pull us out of despair, we have to fall into it. And how she kind of says, if we live in a world of crisis, we also live in a world that romanticizes crisis. And I think that that's such an important part because we do live in a 24-hour news cycle of constant information from so many different platforms. And it's important to notice that, like, a lot of the times, we do glorify what a leader is, and we kind of see this old type of a leader versus this new type of a leader. And how I feel like the old type with like courage and decisiveness and all these admirable traits are sometimes found more in like the academia setting. And then you kind of get into the new type of leadership and how a leader is supposed to shepherd a team through the leadership process. I saw a lot of that in like the internships that I've had in more of a corporate setting. And I think it can be seen in both types. But I think it was really, kind of leading into this new one of like, hey, now instead of, training up citizens, we're kind of training up leaders of tomorrow. And it's kind of like, how can you contribute, but also like, how can you be a catalyst for change? And I think that, a lot of that is a response to crisis. And then kind of the modified lottery, I think it was really cool how they're talking about in the podcast, all the students, coming together for student council, and those who picked the purple beans, the 8 purple beans, they were on student council. And I think it challenged, this traditional way of how we elect leaders. And I think this new modified lottery actually was a great idea. I think I definitely think it offers so much. I think it guarantees more than the traditional way that we do have diversity of thought and experience and perspective, and that we do have an accurate representation of these different ideas and backgrounds. I think some key points in that podcast I highlighted was how lotteries encourage participation, because a lot of people are discouraged by the traditional way of electing leaders. They want to run an office, but they don't want to run for office. And that's so relatable, honestly, because that whole process of traditional way can sometimes be so intimidating, and it becomes almost like a popularity thing sometimes, and not necessarily, your capability, or, how you can represent underrepresented voices. And so I think like the other part was, lottery style encourages diversity of experience and thought by truly, presenting a representative sample of leaders. And it's sometimes how we overlook, or have bias towards certain personality traits or, etc., based on, if this person is qualified for leadership. And sometimes we overlook people who, really have the talent and the gifting and the calling to step into these positions, but are sometimes overlooked. And I think, the lottery style kind of evens out the playing field if that lottery is taken from a diverse pool of people. Moving on to kind of my insights on the plane crash incident, I think this story really illustrates the fact that leadership is something that's sometimes called forth out of us. It's something that we kind of have to rise to in times of crisis, connecting that back to Elizabeth Samet's, phenomenon. But in this, story of this, happening, and we kind of saw that like leadership one is something that, everyone kind of possesses these certain traits, and, sometimes these tragic things in life kind of pull them forward. And it also kind of re-emphasizes that the leadership process is not just about the leader, it's also about everyone else who participates, and everyone else goes through that leadership process as well, as that whole team of people who were, stranded here, had to also contribute to the leadership process, also supported the leader supported the group, and the group supported the leader. And so it kind of analyzed that relationship of trust and just, depth between the leader and the follower. And then a lot of the other times on this is basically jumping into module 2, we talk about, the traits and behavioral, and a lot of the theories that, they were talking about in this article I thought were really important about how traits, do, you know, do matter. And they don't, on themselves predict leadership, but they do, kind of predict the success of leadership based off those actions that person will take if they have those traits, and behaviors. And I think the traits were, great drive, desire to lead, honesty, integrity, self-confidence, cognitive ability, and knowledge of business. And then another, trait I kind of, also added was like empathy. I think empathy is so important in leadership because it really values that person individually. And so I think that was really good to kind of find that. And then another significant part of that reading was the personalized power motive versus the socialized power motive, and using, power as a means to achieve a desired goal rather than, power as just power over people and control. And so it's definitely kind of really determines the quality of leadership and the experience of those that, are following as well, depending on which two those are. And then going into Mr. Brooks, distinctively human skills, the one that I would add would be, either critical thinking or emotional intelligence, because I think critical thinking kind of reflects, again, that human experience of being able to analyze information and then make a accurate, holistic, judgment or reflection about it. And I think AI can assist in that process of collecting information. But yeah, again, tying into the emotional intelligence, I think it's important to kind of have that, because again, it's tapping into that, human experience that factors in so many more things that AI could never even factor in. And I think, the 6 skills that he did mention: a distinct personal voice, presentation skills, childlike talent for creativity, unusual worldviews, empathy, like I had said before, and situational awareness. I think all of them honestly make heavily positively impact effective leadership. I think all of these things actually make the leader more relatable to the team, and more resourceful to the team. And ending with thinking about a leadership scenario, I think the leadership style, an example would be right now in my other class, we're working in PR campaigns. We're doing a campaign with an actual client. It's a food bank in Floyd, Virginia. And my team is, going to provide, just information and helping their marketing and their advertising to their target audience and their key publics. And I'm the leader for that team. I'm the account director, and I'm just really taking a participative leadership style of listening and engaging others. So I think, we're all gonna, collaborate on this, product that we're delivering to a client. And so I think it does matter to kind of just get in, get out the ideas from the people I'm working with, because they're all insanely, talented and have, a fresh pair of eyes on what we're working on. And I think the cons that the infographic mentioned, that it can take too much time or it can stall progress if you're trying to please everyone. And I think in our situation, it's really the client that we're trying to please. And so I think, again, just, listening to everyone's perspective will honestly enhance that project. So that's my reflection. Thanks.